Hello everyone, I am Dr. Pooja Sharma and today we are going to talk about pharmacovigilance. In today's module, we will recap the phases of clinical trials, recap the phase 4 of clinical trials, look at the need for research beyond phase 4, 1 and 2 and 3 of clinical trials, understand what is the meaning of pharmacovigilance. So in the drug development process, we've previously read that clinical trials are the mainstay of the drug development process, and they are primarily divided into 4 phases. The phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 are before marketing authorization, and phase 4 trials or phase 4 studies are post-marketing authorization. Pharmacovigilance is kind of studies that are conducted throughout the life of a drug. We will read about this a little more later. We've already previously looked at this diagram and looking at the drug development process from target selection, lead discovery, medicinal chemistry, to actually animal studies, to clinical trials. So there's preclinical studies, then there's phase 1 clinical trials, which look at safety of the drugs, do no harm, prima non nocere, that it has around 20 to 80 participants. Phase 2 clinical trials, which look at safety and efficacy of the drug, which is 100 to 300 participants. These are also the trials where the final dose is selected, the dosage form. Phase 3 clinical trials, which have 1,000 to 3,000 participants, which are looking at efficacy of the drug. That means how effective or real world utility or how useful it is. After this phase 3 trial, the drug data is submitted to the regulator for approval, and then after approval, there is phase 4 studies that are conducted, which can be conducted in more than 1,000 participants, which are to look at extended other parameters. So once market authorization is done, what happens after that? What is the need for post-marketing safety? You've already done phase 1 trials, 2 trials, 3 trials, in which you looked at so many thousands of people. But it's important to note that the clinical trials are done in a very, very defined environment. It's a very closed environment. It's a very selected environment. And there are specific, very strict inclusion and exclusion criteria. So in case you're doing a study for a drug which is to be used in diabetes, you will give to patients who have specific kind of diabetes, who have HbA1c of particular type. You will give to people and we will say who are taking these kind of other concomitant medications or are not allowed to take concomitant medications. The doctor will keep a close eye, the medical research team will keep a close eye on the patient. But that's not going to happen when it's a real world situation. There are no research coordinators who will be looking at the patient all the time. There are no doctors who will be all the time asking the patient how you're doing every 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, as in clinical trials. You also will not have such clear inclusion-exclusion criteria. There will not be specific age or gender or ethnicity, which is allowed or not allowed. Drug concomitant medications will be allowed. The exposure in clinical trials is for a fixed duration. In real world, the patient will continue to take the medicine. So there may be side effects which happen or adverse events that happen over time. The example for this often that we read is the thalidomide tragedy, and we've previously read this as well. The thalidomide was a drug that was used as a painkiller and as a tranquilizer. It was considered a wonder drug for insomnia, for people not able to sleep, for coughs, colds, and headaches. It was also being used for vomiting, in pregnant women to improve morning sickness. And thousands of pregnant women took this drug to relieve their symptoms. And it took research and vigilance, actually, by Frances Kathleen Kelsey, who was part of the FDA system in the US, who alerted the teams to a cohort of group of children who were being born with these phocomelia or the missing limbs or the flipper limbs. And she was finally given a Distinguished Civilian Award by President Kennedy. And this brought into vision that there is birth defects that are observed, revealing gaps in the drug approval system. The drug approval system approved that drug, the drug was already approved, thalidomide was in the market. It was not tested on pregnant women, but it was available for pregnant women to take. So a obstetrician in Australia actually saw this, reported the birth defects, and then the vigilance started in the US, and then it resulted in a new regulation, which we've seen, the Kupfer-Harris amendments, which were implemented for drug manufacturing companies. This ensured two things: that medicinal plants products were to be tested in animals before humans, and that there should be long-term processes to detect long-term toxicities and to act quickly. So to see and detect these signals and be vigilant about them. Now, the World Health Organization also says that all medicines and vaccines undergo rigorous testing for safety and efficacy through clinical trials before they are allowed use. But however, clinical trial process involves studying these products in a small number of selected individuals for a short period of time. So certain side effects may emerge only once these have been used by heterogeneous, meaning a mixed population, including people with other diseases, other medicines over a longer period of time. Now in India, we follow the NDCT rules 2019. This is the new drug and clinical trials rules. These are the rules that are followed for actually drug development as well as for post-marketing evaluation. In the NDCT Rule 2019, there is a fifth schedule which focuses on post-marketing assessment. They say the post-marketing assessment of a new drug is subsequent to approval of a new drug. The drug shall be closely monitored and post-marketing assessment of its benefit-risk profile. So now benefit is proved. Earlier we talked about risk-benefit profile. Now we are talking benefit-risk profile shall be carried out once it is marketed. Now, this can be done according to the fifth schedule. It can be done through phase 4 studies. Phase 4 or post-marketing trials of new drugs are performed after approval of the drug and are related to approved indication. Such trials can go beyond prior and demonstration of drug safety, efficacy, and dose definition, and they can be in extension studies. Phase 4 trials also include additional drug-drug interaction, drug response, safety studies, and trials designed to support use under appropriate indications. There's also something called the post-marketing surveillance studies. There are post-marketing trials, we just spoke about them. These will add to new indications. Post-marketing surveillance studies these study drugs are a part of the treatment in the wisdom of the prescriber included in the protocol. Now here, the regulatory provisions for a clinical trial of a new drug are not applicable. Whereas in post-marketing trials, the regulatory provisions for all new drug clinical trials are applicable for the patient. This is that fine nuance difference. Otherwise, post-marketing and post-marketing trials and surveillance are looking at safety after marketing. There is also something called PSURs, which are useful for post-marketing surveillance. The PSURs are provided by a market authorization applicant. That means a company who has received permission to market this drug. That company shall furnish periodic safety update report, that is called PSUR, every 6 months for first 2 years after the approval of the drug. After the subsequent 2 years, the periodic safety update report can be submitted annually. So that means that while the drug is considered new drug for 4 years, in the first 2 years, it is to be, these safety updates are provided 6 monthly, and next 2 years, they are to be provided every year. What is the purpose of this monitoring? Is to report all new information, to relate data to patient exposure, summarize the status in other countries. So in other countries, if there is a change in market authorization, or there's some change in package insert, or some information change has happened, then that should be updated. This should also indicate whether the product information will change to optimize use of product. Now let's talk about pharmacovigilance. Now, after drug is already in market, we are doing post-marketing surveillance, we are doing post-marketing trials, and we are doing something called pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is defined as science and activities concerned with detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse reactions to medicine. So any drug can have what is called an adverse drug reaction. That means something which is not nice. Adverse means not nice. That can happen to a patient after the drug has been given to the patient. In that case, that adverse drug reaction should be informed to all appropriate bodies. This concept was actually initiated through the Uppsala Monitoring Center. They are the coordinating center. Currently, they have 139 member countries. This is a collaborating center for maintaining global adverse drug reaction database, also called VGBase. So suppose one adverse drug reaction happens in my city. There's 3 drug reactions happen in your city. 5 drug reactions happen in India. It makes, who is collecting this information, and 5 drugs out of the 5,000 people or 10,000 or 20,000 people who've taken it might not really make so much sense. But in case, when Uppsala Monitoring Center, which gets information from so many countries, can look at this collaborated data from all the countries, it may suddenly seem that number of 3 or 2 or 4 may become a very big number. And that may be something called a signal later. And then regulators and other countries and other become vigilant, seeing, oh, there something happened, there something happened. So India is also a full member of this program and has developed a robust pharmacovigilance system through the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, also called PVPI. Now, pharmacovigilance in India started in 1986 with a formal adverse drug reaction monitoring system, which was created under supervision of the Drug Controller of India and the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The National Program of Pharmacovigilance was launched in 2005 and was later renamed as the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, called PVPI, in 2010. The National Coordination Center earlier was at AIIMS New Delhi, and then later has been shifted to the IPC, that's the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, in Ghaziabad, where it's currently stated. The PVPI works to safeguard. So its vision is to safeguard the health of the Indian population by ensuring that the benefit of the medicine outweighs the risk of using it. This is the website of the PVPI, and I will request all of you to at least once navigate through this website. Now, this is something that, the basic pharmacovigilance story of the PVPI is based on. This is a suspected adverse drug reaction reporting form. This is a voluntary reporting of adverse drug reaction by health professionals. This is a form that is available. This even health professionals can report, even the patient can report. So this is spontaneous reporting forms, right? So the systems that are created for pharmacovigilance actually are supposed to fill these forms. So in PVPI, or just as a very, very overview, Pharmacovigilance Program of India has something called the ADR monitoring centers. If you will remember, ADR is adverse drug reactions. So adverse drug reaction monitoring centers fill up individual case safety reports, which are in this kind of a form. This data then goes through 2 kinds of data, VGFlow and BANIFlow, towards VGBase, which is the repository of the worldwide ICSRs, that's individual case safety reports. This VGBase is available, of course, with the Uppsala Monitoring Center. And then PVPI can issue alerts, recommend label changes. So if there is any signal identified, any adverse event that is seen in a bigger picture, then Pharmacovigilance Program of India issues alerts, recommends changes of labels, identifies these signals, and informs the National Regulatory Authority of the CDSCO, wherein the changes are then corrected. So based on the drug safety information collected, the PVPI issues alerts, recommends label changes, identifies signals, and supports the National Regulatory Authority for recommending these changes. So it's very important to understand that the safety evaluation continues and should continue even after the drug is launched in market in India. It is very, very important because we have seen that the clinical trials are in a very niche population, in a controlled population. In a real world situation, it is important to continue to study the safety. So if you will just recap, The clinical trials began with phase 1, which is a safety study, and they end with phase 4 or pharmacovigilance, which is also safety studies. So safety continues to be a very, very critical parameter in all drug development processes. Actually, it's most important parameter in all of medicine. There is definition of what phase 4 trials are, what PMS studies are, how PMS can be done by periodic safety update report. I would recommend you to read the NDCT Rules 2019 and the Pharmacovigilance Guidance document for marketing authorization holders of pharmaceutical products. Thank you.